Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 3. The greatest story ever told. Modern retelling for the 21st century. The Gita in a way your grandma can understand. Yes, that's the name for today's retelling. Chapter 3 of the Gita, the way of action. So, we're at a pivotal point in the story. Arjuna is still in his loss. Chapter 1, he's in his grief, he's dismantled. He lays down his bow Gandhaiva, says to Krishna, I'm not going to fight. Chapter 2, Krishna seeks to help his disciple, help his friend, by conveying to him the only way he knows how to cut through illusion. That's to show him the nature of reality. So he's outlaying the yoga of wisdom from the highest view. It's like everything is in a state of change. Everything that's born dies. If you know this is unavoidable, these are unavoidable cycles, the wise don't grieve for this, Arjuna. So fight anyway, continue. Virtually, this argument was not enough to convince him of his pain. So now we're in the 3rd chapter. The yoga of action, karma yoga, and the nature of the sacrifice. So, the way to Arjuna's heart now, as Krishna is speaking, is he knows Arjuna is a warrior, a kshatriya by birth, which is of the noble Aryan caste. He's a warrior raised in the most prestigious family, proud birth. He wears the great jewels, he holds the best bow, he has the most beautiful wives. His son is a great archer. He's got a great noble family. Everybody loved his dad, his father. So he holds himself very proud. His pride is very high. The way that Krishna is going to address him now is through action. He's telling him, maybe you're not ripe, Arjuna, to actually recognize the nature of reality, to actually appreciate this wisdom. Maybe you're not qualified to drink from this nectar quite yet. So, I'm going to give you another path. I'm going to tell you something else. This is the yoga of action. From the beginning, from the ancient times, it says, I gave 2 yogas, 2 methods for those who wanted to pursue the contemplative path. This is the pathway of wisdom, the jnana yogi. And for those who want to pursue the path of action, I gave the pathway of the karma yogi. So, beginning of chapter 3, Krishna, he's still smiling. And Arjuna asked him now, Krishna, I'm confused. If you behold that knowledge, that wisdom is superior to action itself, then why the hell are you asking me to fight in this war? He says, what you're saying is apparently contradictory. You tell me that renunciation is better than action, and then you tell me to fight. Resolve this contradiction. It makes no sense. You confuse me with your words and your flowery talk. Help me. Come on, man. I'm confused here. Therefore, tell me definitely that which I should know for the highest good. Krishna smiles. He smiles because he knows this is being recorded. Somebody like me would explain this to you in this modern retelling. So, he says, even in the ancient times, a blameless one, sinless Arjuna, little pure Arjuna, a twofold yoga was taught, a twofold devotion. This is the yoga that I've outlined, the yoga of action and the yoga of wisdom. It was taught by me in ancient times to the world, a devotion of wisdom for those given to contemplation and the pathway of devotion for those who want to act and work in the world. So for you who think this path of action, or this yoga of the Bhagavad Gita, is for people who have to go off and be monks and ascetics in the Himalayas and completely renounce the world, you're wrong, homie. You're wrong. Wrong, man. This yoga is for the world. The pathway of supreme action. To act. How is this going to work for the great archer? Krishna, he says, it's not by abstaining from the action does a man reach the state of the effortless. And it's not by renunciation that he arrives at the perfection. Verily, it's not even for an instant that one can be in this world without having to do work. For he's driven by the qualities of nature, born of nature. Everyone is made to act in spite of himself. Even the wise must act. Even the yogis must act in this world. Even the maintenance of the body action must be done. You still have to shit. You still have to eat. You still have to drink. Still have to sleep. Action still has to be done. So for those who want to reach the path of the actionless by abstaining from action, that's not possible, he's saying. And for those who think they want to reach the ultimate reality of perfection by simply renunciation and not having to act, that's not possible either. Say your ideas of spirituality are wrong, false, ignorant. You have to act. You have to be in the world. He blows the minds of every spiritual materialist there is, and he's cutting the sword now, because he only has a short amount of time left until these two families are going to throw down their swords and cut off each other's heads. So there's no time to waste. He has to give the truth to the highest degree. He says that you can discern an ignorant person. This means that he who restrains the organs of action but continues to dwell in his mind on the objects of the senses deludes himself. That is a hypocrite. So the organs of action here are the feet, the hands, the speech, the sexual organs, and the anus. Okay? That means you still have to urinate. You still have to defecate. You still have to eat and speak for the welfare. You still have to walk, move around. The hands still express themselves. This is still done. This is still done. But the one who's holding to the attachment of a sense of a doer, this is what's being looked at here. That who is doing this? He says it's your nature. Your nature is doing these things. He calls it the Gunas. This is a word that is very hard to translate into English. But if I were to translate it, it would be qualities or characteristics of nature. That your qualities of nature that you're born with are acting in this world. And these three qualities, Sanskrit are called sattva, rajas, and tamas. And you would understand these qualities of nature, right? One who's very lethargic, lazy, they got more of a tamaguna-oriented mentality. One who's very active in the world, very rajaguna active. And one who seems to have a balance of the contemplative and the active. This is the sattva-guna, the one who rests in serenity. So he's saying it's the gunas of nature, the qualities of nature that is making one act. And because we're ignorant, we perceive ourselves as the doer, we don't perceive correctly. So he's telling him, act. Act. Now, So to do your action, for action, to act in this world is superior to non-action. A man who acts in this world, think about your wives, man. It's just think. Don't you earn the respect from people when you're getting stuff done, when you're active? To act in this world is superior than to not act at all. To speak, to stand for truth is superior than to not say anything at all. To present this stuff to you, man, is a form of action itself, a sacrifice. Some people get it, some people won't. They'll ask, why is he sharing this? And I don't know. I don't even feel like I'm doing it, honestly. It's my nature, man. It's my nature. This story is my nature. I'm just conveying something to you that's my heart, in a way. And who knows what past lives. Maybe I was one of the ones Arjuna killed in this battle, witnessing this scene. Who knows? So, action, Krishna is saying, superior to inaction. To act is better than not to act. So act, man. Act in this world. Do your damn thing. Fight. Even the bare maintenance of your body will be not possible without action. It's not possible if you don't act. The world becomes bound by action unless it is done for the sake of a sacrifice. Therefore, O son of Kunti, one of the beautiful names of Arjuna, it's son of the Divine Mother, Kunti, give up the attachment and do your work for the sake of the Lord. So the Lord, as we discussed in chapter 2, is the nature of ultimate reality and how to have the discerning wisdom to recognize ultimate reality. So, saying to act is superior to inaction, and the world becomes bound through the action. You spin the wheel into motion. The world is sustained. There's cosmic order. Families come forth, systems come forth, progeny comes forth, and the world continues on. That's not possible if there's those who don't act. But the end to the action, this is a unique word that the Gita and the Upanishads have really put forth. It's Sanskrit, it's called the yajna. English means the sacrifice. That the end of all action is a sacrifice. Now, most people who will interpret this, they'll put the book down right now, they'll put the story down, and they'll associate it with something like Christ and a sacrifice, or what the Mayans did and sacrifice everybody and pull out the hearts of little kids. It's not that kind of sacrifice. So get that out of your head. This is the highest sacrifice, a pure sacrifice. The sacrifice that's being referred to as the end of all action is the sacrifice of sacrificing one's attachment to the fruit of one's result. To act in this world, but to not hold the some result, like I'm going to get something. By doing good, I'm going to get the heavenly worlds. I'm going to get the 72 brides. I'm going to get supreme fame. Everyone's going to love me. Those are fruits. The sacrifice is the non-attachment to such a fruit. This is the true sacrifice. Not through being a martyr. Not through killing yourself. He's not telling Arjuna to sacrifice yourself in battle. He's telling him to act. Surrender your attachment to even holding on to your body. To whether you win the fruit of a kingdom or you win the fruit of the heavenly realms. Act anyway. If you win the earth, you enjoy that fruit, but don't do it for the sovereignty of the earth. If you fight anyway and you die, enjoy the heavenly realms, but don't do it for enjoyment of the heavenly realms. Make the sacrifice of action. Set the example and the standard that the world then follows. This is the real karma yogi. The real karma yogi who's not attached to the outcome but acts as an instrument of the peace, that acts as an instrument of the Lord being ultimate reality. And he sees himself as an instrument with himself, not as the doer, but as the instrument, the doer being the qualities of nature, the gunas, of all the karmic actions in the past that result in culminated in this instant, and all the circumstances that have led to these families going at it, and why everybody feels this is such an inevitable thing. And I'm actually talking about right now, I don't know if you guys know this, but the war that is being referred to is the war of your own mind. If you get this, Kurukshetra is your own freaking mind. Okay? The two forces of the two armies, that is Rajaguna and Tamaguna. Those are the two polarities, negative and positive. Krishna and Arjuna in the middle of it, that in the middle of the two opposing forces, that is the central axis of the spine, the backbone, okay, that upholds the mind. If you can see these analogies in the story, it's relevant in this day and age, because the forces of darkness, the forces of light, the forces that need the balance, you need this shit. This is here. This is a modern retelling for these times. This is not something in the past. Kurukshetra is now. Right freaking now. So let me go on with what is being said. He says in the past, the creators, in Sanskrit were called the Prajapatis, the people, the co-creators of the world, who knew the ultimate nature of reality, knew themselves as inseparable from the Brahmic source. Brahmic referred to as Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, infinite bliss. One who recognizes their universality with Satchit Ananda is recognized as a Prajapati, a co-creator with the world. The Prajapatis, in the beginning, created the men together with the sacrifice, with the intention of saying, by this sacrifice, by acting in this world, you shall multiply. Is what, like the Lord said in Genesis, go forth and multiply. Act in the world. There's nothing different. The story is the same, just told in a way that you can understand. By this sacrifice you shall multiply. Let this sacrifice be the cow of plenty. The cow is what gives the milk of wisdom. And you yield this by the sacrifice of your action. It will be the milk of the desires, which feeds the world. So, it says to Arjuna, act, 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 fight, fight, fight. And with this sacrifice, you shall nourish the gods. The gods, in this case, is a Sanskrit word. And, you know, in America, we all have interpretations of what that means, of the gods. The gods in this case translates as the devas. The devas translate as the shining ones, the luminescent ones. That everyone on the battlefield there is, you were to understand the gods, there are specific qualities and characteristics of nature that is projected onto each and every single being. So I'm telling these stories from the archetypal perspective. Each of these archetypes, when I talk about Bhishma being the grandsire of immortal, or Dronacharya, the great warrior of like a godly nature, of an immortal body, or Ashwatthama, who's like, he wields the freaking bow and sings like a horse, man. I speak of these qualities of these people like gods in a way. They're just projections of celestial qualities. And it says, by acting you nourish the devas, you nourish the shining ones. That those qualities too are immortal and they do not perish away. That the story, the Leela, the great song, continues going forth. With sacrifice you shall nourish the gods, and may the gods in turn nourish you. And this nourishing one another, you will obtain the highest good. The highest good, saying, is the end of the sorrow, liberation itself. The gods are nourished by the sacrifice. You will bestow on you the enjoyments of desire, the milk of wisdom, which is obtained by the sacrifice and end of action, to act unattached to the result. And he who is verily a thief is one who enjoys the things that are given without offering back anything in return. So you people who just want to take, who just want to receive, you just want the fruits, that's not karma yoga, man. That's not a karma yogi. A karma yogi in this case is one who is not grasping that but is still acting in the world. Get this straight. Understand the difference here. He's not asking, you will get plenty, you'll get all these results. You'll still get results. But the true karma yogi is doing this with the unwaveringness of mind for the highest good. The highest good is the liberation that comes from the unwaveringness and directness, one-pointedness on the ultimate nature of reality. Only that, through that recognition of reality, the ego of delusion can be cut by the sword of truth. This is why this is being taught. This is very profound, man. Very profound. It was hard for me to get into in chapter 2. Hopefully I'm making a little bit more sense in chapter 3 of why this is important. Why this actually matters. This is relevant for our time. So, I'm going on. I'm continuing. Listen, please. Krishna's saying, so, the superior person is the one who's unattached to the fruit of the result. He makes the sacrifice of the fruit. He has the apple. He sacrifices the apple. He's not like Eve, okay, or Adam. They were tempted by the fruit. They were tempted by the tree, man. It's not like that. He's saying you can, act in the garden, be in the play, but you don't have to eat. You don't have to grasp at the fruit. If the fruit comes, the apple falls, fine. But you don't have to grasp at it. So the good men who enjoy the remnants of the sacrifice, like the apple that has fallen, that has come to one of its own accord, through your own karmic merit, through your own causes and conditions, they are freed from all the sins and adversities that arise. But the wicked men, the ones who just want the fruit, they just want to eat the goddamn apple, and who cook food only for themselves. They only think about themselves. What about me, man? What about the self-love? What do I get out of this by following this? Those are the ones, he said, virtually, they have a much more difficult time to recognize the ultimate nature of reality. And this is a difference there, that this is a yoga, a union. You just don't stumble upon it by chance. One has to choose this. The unwaveringness of mind that comes through the recognition of the ultimate nature of reality is a truth that one actively steps in the world. Arjuna, he has to choose to fight this battle. It's not just going to happen to him. The choice is what's important. For everyone who's giving up their choice right now, shame, man. I want to see karma yogis in this world. True karma yogis, man. The ancient yoga. So, why is the sacrifice important? See, it gives the analogy here that the whole world is sustained through a sacrifice. That everybody derives themselves from food. This form, it's from all of the shit you've eaten and drinking, the milk, the sustenance that you've had as a baby, the food, the pizza, the chicken, the vegetables, the salad, the guacamole, the chips, the Coca-Cola you had. All of that has sustained you for this length of time. All creatures are born from the food they eat. The food is your connection. The food is derived from a sacrifice itself. How is this so? As he says, from the food, derives from the rain. The rain, okay, comes from the sacrifice. And the sacrifice comes from action. Now, the rain comes from the fire. The fire comes from the offerings, like the offerings of ghee that are poured into the fire. And when there's heat, like in the world, an amount of fire arises, that heat and the difference bring forth the rain, which nourishes the ground, which brings forth the food, which sustains you. And those who tend to the land, like Cain and Abel, who tended to the soil, they were supposed to act. But one got jealous. One wanted the goddamn fruit. One wanted more than, Cain wanted more than Abel. So what did he do? He killed him. He killed him. He got jealous. He was not a karma yogi. That's why he was punished. Fortunately, that's the sin. If I related to the biblical narrative, it's like that. So he says, know that the action arises from the Vedas. The Vedas is the knowledge itself. And all the Vedas come from the imperishable self. Therefore, the all-pervading Vedas ever rest in the sacrifice. So the imperishable is the supreme reality. And the Vedas here is in relation to the infinite knowledge that comes like the breath and like the wind. And this derives like from the sacrifice of offering the breath unto the fire within oneself. I have to relate it to this form. The breath, by offering it, feeds the fire. The nourishment of heat brings forth the rain from the clouds, nourishes the body, pacifies the emotions, stabilizes the system. It came from a sacrifice, even the sacrifice of one's own breath that they've held on to their own. How many people you know who even hold on to their breath? It's my breath. You're taking up your whatever it is, even though we share the same energy, we share the same breath. But chapter 3, it should be aware now that the breath itself is, you don't even own that. So that too can be sacrificed. And there is a joy in this sacrifice. It's not a bad thing. To sacrifice is not to kill. Okay? It's not to go slaughter everybody. The sacrifice leads to the highest good. It leads to a purification because your suffering is an attachment to a fruit. And what is Krishna saying here? He says, how is this wheel set in motion? He says, in ancient times, he said, this wheel was set in motion. And he who does not follow this eternal pathway of the Dharma, this pathway of sacrifice, but he wants to take delight in the senses. He lives a sinful life. He lives a foolish life, for he does not see clearly. He lives in vain. One who just wants to partake of the fruit, to not give back, or one's life can be an instrument, can be an offering. That's why I said, you're purifying to be an instrument for the peace. What does an instrument do but make a song? It brings forth beauty for the world. A beautiful song that inspires, creates, sustains, motivates others. It sets the wheel going on fire. The dance and the song becomes an offering unto the world. It's a beautiful sacrifice. Maybe that word doesn't click with you, but I don't have an English equivalent right now that resonates. I think sacrifice is, I'm going to just nail it to the point. To sacrifice. Because even that you'll have to sacrifice, man. Attachment to these names. Sacrifice it. Let it go. Okay. But verily, the man who rejoices in the self, the self of ultimate reality, and is satisfied with the self, and is content in the self. This means he's taken refuge. He sees the self as the qualities of unborn, unchanging, permanent, eternal, immutable, self-existent. He says that if that's all that is, why would I not take refuge in that? So he sacrifices everything he's holding on to. He lets go of his phone, the cards, the cup of tea. I'm going to take refuge in that self that has existed since ancient times, that is primordial, ancient. My sole refuge, which Krishna is the embodied form of. See, he's speaking as the ultimate reality. So he's saying, take refuge in the self. Be content in the self. For he who has nothing for which he should work. Furthermore, the yogi, man, he has no object to gain. So the gaining of some fruit is surrendered as well. Nor to lose by what he leaves undone. He's going beyond now, sacrificing the fruit for gain, the fruit of loss, the fruit of fame, the fruit of infamy. Going beyond the attachments to such polarities. Remember that they're standing in the battlefield between the two polarities, between the two armies, man, ready to wage war. And this dialogue is being spoken as a symbol of the cosmic correspondence, as above, so below. And this is a microcosmic view of macrocosmic order, as Krishna and Arjuna are representing the central channel of the sun and the moon, the union. Think about this. Profound, man, profound. I know this is not a normal talk, but the Bhagavad Gita is not a normal story, so I'm laying it all out. This is my sacrifice. That he has no object to gain by what he does in this world, nor anything to lose by what he leaves undone, nor is there anyone among all beings on whom he need depend for any object. He sees all beings within himself, so where would he look for any being outside of himself? Even Krishna is saying, you know, it's not me, man. It's not me. I'm the ultimate reality. You take refuge in me, you're taking refuge in your own nature. But to Arjuna, recommending, but since you haven't understood quite clearly yet the ultimate nature of reality, therefore, do work, act. In this way you will purify yourself. Do your action without the attachment to the work you have done. For a man who does his work without attachment, he attains the supreme. He attains the supreme source. For all the men, the great warriors in the past of ancient, he says, they acted in the same way. They knew this yoga, the yoga of wisdom, jnana yoga. They knew the yoga of action, karma yoga. And they acted with these two yogas. All the yoga systems you know now, Kundalini, Hatha, Raja, all the other names, even Patanjali's yoga, derived from these two ancient yogas. This is the freaking source. Every physical asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, samadhi, they have their roots in this yoga. This is the primeval yoga. And it's so simplified for you. So simplified. You don't even have to study the 8 limbs. It's telling you to act. And through this, you can actualize this yoga. Verily, the great men in the past, like Janaka, who was a very prestigious king, but he had the concentration of a karma yogi. He acted in the world as a king and a sovereign, but through that purification, renounced the world. He attained perfection. Further, you should perform your duty and work with a view to guiding people along the right path. He's telling Arjuna to set the standard. Set the standard that the world then follows. You be the example. You want people to do the right thing? You have to be that example, to act. And if you don't act, let's say a woman's abused, like your wife, Arjuna, who was raped in front of an assembly of kings. Do you just want the men in the future to just say, well, I'm not going to fight? Or do you want people to actually speak up and say, that's bullshit, man, that's wrong. People should not do that or treat women like that. That's what he's saying, to set the example that the world then follows. Be a man, Arjuna. Be a man, a real man who stands up for the goddamn truth. And as Krishna, as the embodiment of truth, he said, I know you're better than that. You're an extension of me. I got you, man. But you need to wake up and recognize that we're like this, okay? Snap out of your delusion, Arjuna. Snap out of it. Freaking fight. Fight. So, how does he guide others? By following this yoga of action. Krishna, he says, whatever a great man does, others will follow. He will set that example. And whatever he sets as the standard, the world will follow it. So, Mahatma Gandhi said the same thing, too. To be the change you wish to see in the world. Vasudeva is saying nothing different to Arjuna. Saying nothing different. This is what it means. This is not something of the past. You are the change. You be the change. And to recognize this wisdom is capable of being the sword to slice through ignorance and delusion. It's very powerful medicine. And I hope you're listening. I really hope so. This is a sacrifice to get this out. So Krishna gives his example of the sacrifice that he's had to make as the embodied supreme reality. He says, I have, O Partha, no duty. There's nothing I need to do. The world is complete in me. But there's nothing in the three worlds that I have not gained, nothing I have not attained, and nothing that I have to gain. Yet, I still work. I'm still in the world. I still act for the benefit of others. So, even though he has everything, even though he has attained the immortal state, even though Krishna recognizes the Supreme as the central channel in the story of the two polarized forces of Dharma and Adharma coming to war to wage each other, Vasudeva says, I still act. And I'm acting as your charioteer in this battle. Don't forget, it's me who's riding and steering your steeds, your horses. It's I who control the reins. And he says, for if I did not act, for should I ever not engage in this world, unwearied, tired, in action, O Arjuna, O Partha. Men, they would follow in my wake, they would follow in my footsteps, and what would happen? If I stopped working, the world would fall apart, it would dissolve and perish, and I would cause this intermixture, this interbreeding of the social order. Chaos ensues, and confusion ensues. So I act anyway in this world. And this action is a sacrifice. You can understand this from the great avatars who made this sacrifice. Maybe you relate to it in Christian terms. You've seen this form of sacrifice in Buddhist terms. But I have nothing wrong with the sacrifice. I praise the sacrifice. I praise the karma yoga. I think it's relevant in this day and age. Understand, for the tantric yogis out there, karma yoga is tantra. This is the outward pathway of luminosity, to be in the world, opening up of the five senses and transforming it. That is tantra. So, we were saying, how is it relevant? There you go. There you go, man. That's it. So, what does the man of self-realization work for? You know? Krishna is saying the ignorant act in a way attached to the fruit. And O Bharata, as he addresses Arjuna, Bharata is the empire, and Arjuna is a noble descendant of the empire. O Bharata, so an enlightened man acts, but he acts without the attachment in order that he may set people straight on the path, that he sets the standard the world then follows. And the incentive for someone who knows the truth, knows the self, knows the ultimate reality, is let no enlightened man unsettle the understanding of the ignorant. Saying, people who are dumb, people who don't want to hear this, people who don't want to watch this because they don't think it's relevant, let them remain ignorant. Let them remain attached to their action. Let them remain, for those who don't even grasp this, let you remain attached to your fruit and hold on to it. For if you don't see this as relevant, go ahead. For he should engage them in action himself, performing it with devotion. Meaning, to set the example, but not having to prove myself. To prove oneself to the world, try to have to convince somebody else's mind that this path is right or not. For you to act in the world is the purification. Remember that as he goes through the various means of purification, he will eventually touch upon the various layers of identity and the grasping that we hold on to. Grasping at the five senses, the mind, the intellect, the ego, our intelligence. Grasping at all these senses as me and mine. He said it's not you, it's your nature. It's the gunas, the qualities. You are nothing more. Your body is nothing more but an instrument. So be the instrument. Why do you think it is that Krishna in the depictions, he's playing the flute? He's playing, you are the flute. You want to be a crappy flute, man, that can't play a rhythm, that can't hold a beat? Do you want to be part of the Lord's song that is sung for the benefit of the world? That's your choice, what you choose to do. And god damn, if you give up your choice, you're no warrior in my opinion, man. Warrior holds their choice. They fight with devotion. They willingly lay the sacrifice down and die for the truth. They have to. Be a brave one. Be a brave man. So, all the work, all the duties, everything that's done, he says, is performed by the gunas, the qualities of nature, prakriti, as it's called in Sanskrit. This is a good word to know, prakriti. Prakriti is your nature. And I think it's very simple to understand. Because when I got into the Buddha Dharma, when you get into the nature of mind and the study of non-duality, the dogma there will hold you down to such a degree that even when you talk about nature, he said nature of mind. Who's he to discuss this? This is the primordial yoga. This is prakriti. This is your nature. What is being conveyed to you is your nature pointing you out to yourself. And who else would be qualified but you? If you're hearing this, god damn it, you are worthy, you are qualified. Be done with the dogma. All work is performed by prakriti. But he whose mind is deluded by the egotism thinks, it is me. I'm the one doing this. I'm the doer of the act. I'm the one who's doing good things. I'm the one who's laying it out. What about me? What do I get out of it? That's the ignorance that is unwilling to make the sacrifice of the action. That's not a karma yogi. A karma yogi is able to sacrifice the ego. Not to slay the ego, not to make an enemy out of ego, but lays it down like a sacrifice on the cross. He lays down the I, surrenders it, and acts as the flute, as Krishna's flute. He plays the song. You are the song. Nature is singing through you. You can compose a beautiful hymn. Or you can compose a fucked up hymn. You know, it makes everybody want to run away from you. I played those songs. It's hard to listen to. Hard to even listen to myself sometimes. Telling you. Be the instrument. You can play a beautiful song. But the enlightened man, the superior one, the karma yogi, he's a little different than the other man. Actually very different. For his choice remained. He's strong. Strong in his word. He knows himself as an instrument. He knows his nature. And sometimes his mind wavers, but he brings it back. He says, but mighty Arjuna, O mighty Arjuna, the karma yogi, the devotee, he knows the truth about the gunas, the qualities of nature. He knows the truth of action, of himself as an instrument. And what is distinct from them, the difference is that he holds himself unattached. He perceives that it is the qualities, that it is the gunas that are interacting with each other. These forces of nature, the outward pulsation of the Rajaguna, the inward pulsation of the Tamaguna, okay, the balance and equilibrium of the Sattva guna. Understand that this is like waves on the ocean. You can have calm, tranquil waves. You can have tumultuous waves like tsunamis. There's Rajaguna. You can have a still wave, just Tamaguna. You see these as waves, fluctuations of the ocean, frequencies. Maybe that's a better term, vibration. These are just vibrations in nature, ways to discern what kind of wave is going on. But he's saying that it's the waves acting upon the waves, the gunas acting upon the gunas, and that's all you're seeing, vibration. And that vibration is the quality of nature. Waves upon waves upon waves. So this is the topic under discussion. Nature, the gunas, the waves. So those who are deluded by the gunas of Prakriti, they're deluded by the waves of the senses, the thought fields, the emotions that come. They attach themselves to the action. They think themselves of I as the doer, and that but it's those gunas that prompt the action, the waves, and we don't recognize it. A thought comes, you even hold on to it, it says my thought. Is it? It just came like that, spontaneously. It's yours? Where did it come from? You see how egotism works. It grasps at that. Unwilling to even surrender the thought of my thought. I did this. I thought this. Did you? He just said it was the gunas, man, the waves acting upon the waves. You know that your mind perceives waves. It also has the capacity to direct waves. You're directing waves down. And you can also send waves out. That is the bhakti of the heart. The true yogi, the true jnani, is pulsing out his own wave field. I mean, your own nature is an extension of your heart. Say this is why your body is actually the field. Your body is actually Kurukshetra, the great lover itself. Your body is Prakriti, nature. Your eternal lover, your beloved. All the Sufis out there who are looking for the beloved, it's right here, baby. It's right here. So, The wise are deluded, for they think of themselves as the doer. They're deluded by the waves of Prakriti. They attach themselves to the actions, and nevertheless, let no man who knows the whole unsettle the minds of the dull-witted, who know only a part. Saying, those who don't know, they can't even hear what you're saying. They think of it as something that's not relevant to them. You let them be. Don't disturb their mind. You be a karma yogi. You be unwavering, discerning in your wisdom. You stand apart. So the duties of a yogi, he's discerned with his mind, unwavering for the highest good of liberation, willing to surrender in the sacrifice. And Krishna, he says that surrendering all action to me with the mind intent on the self. So when he says me here, he's inseparable from the supreme reality. So even the sense of I, he's beyond even the pride. So when he says I, it's the supreme being, the absolute being conveyed to the relative, and Arjuna being the relative example, and in a way his actual relative and cousin. Surrendering all action to me with the mind intent on the self, freeing yourself from longing and selfishness. Fight, man, fight, Arjuna, unperturbed by the grief. He's saying endure, stand. And those who are full of faith, whoever follow this teaching of mine, and do not mock it, you do not put it down, they actually have respect for it, they too are released from their work and their action. They too can reach the highest good. But for those who don't have faith in this, I'm saying you have to choose this. This is liberation. To be a yogi, I think this yoga is a practical yoga. And this is an ancient yoga, primeval yoga, from the ancient of times, being conveyed to you now in a way that hopefully you can understand. If I'm doing my part correctly as a communicator in this, it should be communicating an ancient yoga that should be making sense in a way, a retelling in a way that you can understand in modern terms. That's the goal here. So, but those who mock it, those who carp at this teaching, and they don't practice it at all, they hear it, that it's like to hear them and like, I'll pursue that some other time. This is not for them. And know that such a senseless person, blind to the wisdom, they fall. They're doomed to the destruction that is really nobody else's fault. For it was their own choice, their own self-responsibility to have rejected that wisdom, rejected the yoga that was given unto them, for it's not having the faith, not having the devotion to even walk that path, maybe not having the courage, not having the confidence to even pursue it, not having the bravery or the virtue to even walk the path, having the doubt, and not choosing to even remain in this state of, okay, that endurance. He covered in chapter 2 to endure, Arjuna, endure the changes between hot and cold, pleasure and pain, fame and infamy, endure them, and you shall recognize yoga as equanimity. Be equal, reside in that state of equality, know that state of equality to be yoga. That's the yoga of wisdom that's being referred to. That's what Arjuna did not get. For those who don't get it, he's saying now, you don't have to convince others. I tried to convince you, Arjuna, and you didn't get it. So I'm giving you a different path. I'm telling you to now act. And this yoga of karma, the karma yogi, he will purify himself. and make himself pristine, a suitable prospect and candidate for the yoga of wisdom that can take refuge and rest in the eternal, immortal, self-existing, absolute reality. As even the man of knowledge, even the one who knows, he still acts in the world. He still acts in accordance with what his own nature is. His own nature is still guiding him to eat, sleep, drink, take care of others, from whatever the causes and conditions were. And all beings follow their nature. Nobody is exempt to act. Nobody is exempt. Everybody is interdependent and connected with this nature. And this nature is all good, man, all good. So if everyone has to act, even the wise, even the enlightened ones, even the Buddhas, even the Krishnas, even the Christ, all have to act. What will restraint accomplish? What will trying to suppress it do? For everybody who wants to even try to suppress, say, your sexual desire, you know how to see that desire is Prakriti. That is your nature. What do you think Kundalini is? Kundalini is making the goddess, the divine mother. That's Prakriti, your nature. So it says, what will restraint accomplish? I'm trying to make it relevant for you in these modern times. The love and the hatred that the senses feel for their objects are inevitable. But let no one come under their sway, for they're one's enemies on the path. The enemy that's being referred to here is the attachment and the aversion that one has for the appearances that arise in regards to one's nature. You don't even recognize your nature, so you see these appearances as something separate from you, the objects of the senses, sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. And since you see them out there, you don't recognize it as nature, Prakriti, the waves of the Gunas, man, the waves upon the waves upon the waves on the ocean. So you fight it, you resist it, you're at war. The war with your own self. This is the battlefield, Kurukshetra, and the story in which this is all taking place. Story of your own mind. This story ain't out there. I'm talking about you, specifically, you. Better is one's own Dharma, he says. Better is one to act, even if it's imperfect. Act imperfectly if you have to. For better than one's own Dharma than a Dharma of another performed perfectly. Better is it to die doing one's own Dharma than to do the Dharma of another, fraught with peril. The Dharma here is referred to as the duty and one's own obligation to uphold the good of the world. And the good of the world was established, remember, through the Prajapatis, who said that the sacrifice, the purpose of the sacrifice is for the good of the world, for it upholds creation. And so the Dharma here is what upholds the good. To act upholds the good. And for you to try to do something else other than what the necessities, what the circumstances are asking to be done in this moment here, is an attachment to not understanding what the nature is bringing you forth to do in this instant, right here, right now. Maybe the nature is to listen. Maybe it's to sit still and just take a deep breath and say, okay, man, this is a lot to comprehend. But to sit with this, to do your Dharma, man, to do your obligation, do your duty, listen to your nature. Listen to the song, listen to the inner sound, listen to the song being played through you as the instrument. And Arjuna, he asked Krishna, can you clear this up further? I mean, I think I get it. I think I have a little bit better understanding. But under what compulsion does a man commit these atrocities? O Varshnaya, this is another name of Vishnu. O Varshnaya, in spite of himself, and driven as it were by force, why does he commit such sins? And it's Krishna saying it is desire, it is anger, it is the lust, greed, which springs from the Rajaguna, the wave of the outward pulsation, the active energy of Rajas, which will be explained more in chapter 13 when we get into this. Know that this is the enemy here, for it's that craving and attachment of the senses with their objects that keeps us spinning and spinning in the wheel of birth and rebirth, again and again and again, and wanting the end of suffering, but you're stuck in the attachment. It says, know that this Rajaguna, this is the enemy here, and it's devouring, and it's the cause of all sorrow, the cause of all mistakenness. Why is it the enemy? Arjuna ponders. He gives the analogy like fire. As fire is concealed by smoke, you don't quite see it, you just see smoke. As a mirror is covered by the dust, you can't see your own reflection, you're just blinded. As an unborn babe covered by the womb, you can't see the fetus. So is knowledge concealed by ignorance, caught in the lust, caught in the emotions, caught in the jealousy, the pride, the desire, the temptations. So enveloped in is this knowledge, O son of Kunti. He says, by the insatiable fire of desire, it overwhelms the minds of those who don't understand this wisdom, and is the constant foe of the wise. We always have to be on the watch for it. And it's capable of taking one's mind like the ship takes, like the wind takes away a ship at the sea. The senses, the mind, and the understanding are said to be the seat of this desire. Desire can manifest in any of these seats. The five senses, sound, taste, touch, smell, and sight. The mind, the intellect which steers the senses. It can manifest there to grasp at any specific one of these. And then the understanding as well. The intelligence that sees itself as a separate doer. And it's this desire that veils the knowledge of wisdom and deludes the embodied soul, the spirit, all-pervading. Therefore, Krishna says, O Lord of the Bharatas, control your senses at the outset and slay this foul destroyer of knowledge and realization. So, two things he says here. Self-control, which we have established is the preliminary for the yoga of wisdom. One has to have established self-control. And two is the action, that now what he's saying to actually slay is not an external foe, but to slay the desire. Slay the attachment at its root. Cut it down with your sword. Be the warrior. That's the enemy here. No, it's not an external foe. For all you who thought that he was saying to go and kill everybody and slaughter, you mistook in the message. He's saying to slay your own attachments. Cut it at its root like a sword. Take it down. Be brave. That kind of warriorship. You see how you could have misinterpreted this? Ah, man. This is a tricky book. This is a hard one. The senses are superior to the body, Krishna says. It's superior to the senses as the mind itself. So each one of these rules one another. The senses rule the body. The mind rule the senses. And superior to the mind is the understanding. It translates as bodhi. Bodhi is the intelligence of nature. It's naturally intelligent, synchronistic, awakened nature. Superior to this understanding is he. He in this instance is referred to as the dweller, the self, the witness. Sanskrit is the Purusha, he who pervades and dwells in the heart of all. That's the eternal witness that is in relationship with nature. And through that resides in the heart, resides in the field of consciousness. He therefore know this self residing in the heart of all beings is superior to even the understanding. For it is the embodied self that understands. Control the self by the self. It means self with a small s is to be controlled, governed by the ultimate reality, the self with the big S. And destroy, Almighty Arjuna, the enemy. The enemy, we've said, is the enemy of attachment, the enemy of desire, of the senses grasping at their objects, not an external foe. And destroy the enemy, man, who comes in the guise of desire and is very hard to overcome. Interesting. Very interesting. Thus is the end of chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of the Upanishads. This is the essence of all the classic literature, the science of Brahman, Satchidananda, the scriptures of yoga. It is the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, and it is the essence of Vedanta, the end of knowledge itself. Or to seek any other knowledge would just be that desire, again, some form. Slay it is Krishna's advice. Slay that desire, slay the enemy, come to the end of knowledge, come home, take refuge. Thus ends the 3rd chapter, titled The Way of Action. Whew! This is interesting. We'll end it here today. See you in the next chapter, chapter 4, The Way of Knowledge.